thing I'm going to go over is some vocabulary about domain and range because that's really what our lesson is about. Our real objective is to use multiple representations in order to describe the domain and range of a function by using manipulatives. So the manipulative that I'm going to go through with you all is active inspire. So I've got a little digital manipulative to help make domain and range a little bit more easy. So the first thing that you need to remember about domain and range is you have to list it from least to greatest. It is very important that the smallest number comes first and the biggest number comes last. So whether that smallest number is going to be negative infinity, because you can go all the way down to negative infinity, whether your largest number is positive infinity, it has to go in order from least to greatest. So we are going to use inequality notation. So that means we are going to be using the less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, less than, greater than. We're going to use those signs. And there are two different scenarios when you would use your or equal to. So where it says, if the point is included, boom. That is very important. So if you are including that point in your domain and range, you have to use your less thans or equal to, or your greater than or equal to, depending on what you're doing, symbol to make sure that you list it correctly. The way you're going to be able to tell whether or not you should use the or equal to version of your symbol is if you see an actual point on the graph. If you don't see a point, you're looking for a solid line, but you're looking for something that says, hey, this space is closed off, it's filled in, it's colored in. That means I'm going to include this value for my domain or my range. However, if that point, so if that value, that's what we're talking about a point, if that value is not going to be included, you're going to use an actual less than symbol or a greater than symbol, depending again on what the question is asking. And then the way you're going to be able to tell if you should use your less than symbol, you are going to see on an actual graph an open circle. So it's really just a regular circle. We call it an open circle because that means that space is kind of left open. And if we try to put our number into the function, it's not going to work. We're going to get an error message. So think of it as that number just fell through my graph because there's a legitimate hole in my graph. The other time you would use that less than symbol or the greater than symbol is if you see an arrow. That arrow is important because what that arrow technically means is we're going to keep going on forever and ever and ever. And you can't really come up with a real answer. So we call that infinity. Infinity is not a real number, so we don't really include. I can't say, hey, I'm going to go to the store today and I'm going to purchase infinity amounts of hand sanitizer because it is still pretty COVID-y outside last time I checked. So please make sure you've got your hand sanitizer. Shameless plug for the Maryland State Department of Health. So if you ever see that arrow on your graph, make sure you're using that infinity symbol when you're writing your domain or range. And then make sure if you ever use that infinity symbol, you gotta use your plain old less than or your plain old greater than. So we're gonna look at just a review. This, please don't worry about it. Moving on to the next slide. So we're just going to kind of review when you use the two different versions, the less than or equal to versus the greater than or equal to, and so on and so forth. So if you see a greater than, if you're going to use a greater than symbol in your domain or your range, it is because on the graph, you will see an open circle. If you see a closed circle, you're going to use the greater than or equal to. Less than means there was an open circle. Don't include that value, not actually. And then less than or equal to, you're going to see a closed off circle. And you will be able to actually include that in your domain or your range. Next video, show you some examples.